Hello Guardians, what is going on? I hope 2022 has been juicy for you the same way it has been for me lately. Firstly, I want to take a moment to thank everybody who has shared some love and some constructive feedback on my videos lately. It massively motivates me to keep grinding. Thank you all. Now, without further ado, let's jump into today's delicious topic. It's not a secret that I am first and foremost a Titan connoisseur. I love the Titan aesthetic and it's pretty much the reason I main Titan. But there is a subclass that has caught my attention lately and I'm extremely surprised by how lethal this subclass is. I'm talking about Middle Tree Dawnblade, the Well of Radiance Warlock. This subclass is a neutral game monster. If I'm completely honest, I used to think this subclass only belonged in the PvE sandbox, and if at all I saw it in the Crucible, my assumptions led me to believe this class would naturally translate to the support role, but boy, I was wrong. I'm going to break down the entire subclass, but if you want to jump straight into the juice, timestamps below for you. First, let's start with the super. Well of Radiance. Thrust your Daybreak sword into the ground. The sword continuously projects a powerful aura that heals and empowers nearby allies, increasing their weapon damage and protecting them from the effects of stasis. The melee ability is Guiding Flame. Strike an enemy with this melee ability to inflict burn damage and empower yourself and nearby allies. Benevolent Dawn. Healing or empowering allies regenerates your grenade, melee, and rift energy. Divine Protection. Convert your grenade into a blessing that heals ally targets and drops overshields you and your allies can pick up. Activate Divine Protection while gliding to hover in mid-air. Okay, so we ran through the subclass perks, but what does this all actually mean? Middle Tree Dawnblade revolves around the Benevolent Dawn perk, which restores all your abilities, but most importantly, how you meet the activation conditions for this is where the real special sauce comes from. Every time you heal your teammates or strike an enemy with your melee ability, you trigger the effects of Benevolent Dawn, seriously jacking up your ability regen rate, which in today's ability economy is extremely valuable. Here's the secret sauce. You convert your grenade into a healing nade, which gives you an overshield, and if your teammates pick this up, you become empowered. The thing that really takes this up a notch are the changes that Bungie has made to the individual grenade cooldowns. Firebolt grenades at tier 10 discipline have a base cooldown of 24 seconds. Every 24 seconds, you now have access to an overshield and a potential ability regen boost. With the global nerfs to passive super regen, Intellect is essentially a useless stat now, making Discipline a more desirable stat. Additionally, the nerfs to passive regen also reduce the competition directly with its other counterparts, Top Tree Dawn and Bottom Tree Dawn. Well, Warlock has its own niche now, but let me be clear. Objectively, Top Tree Dawn is globally recognized by the PvP community as the best PvP subclass in Destiny 2, but most people lack the skill to really bring out the juice in Top Tree Dawn. What I am saying is that this subclass has now become a viable threat and is far more accessible. Let's quickly touch on the loadout I used during my time with the Well Warlock. As I've hinted earlier, I think it's best to play this subclass more aggressively, and I arrived at this conclusion by testing different loadouts. I went from a Lumina support build, which was fun, to settling with the traditional meta loadout. It's not that I needed to play a meta loadout, but I wanted to see the maximum potential of this subclass without pigeonholing my playstyle to see if I could compete with the more traditional DPS classes. I'll showcase this on screen for you to see, but let's move on to the playstyle. We'll quickly run through some playstyle notes here. Let's take a defensive anecdote for example. Think about a situation where you're in a tight gunfight and you're one shot. You eat your grenade, you throw it on yourself or your teammate, and more often than not, you will be able to turn the tide on your opponent as they try to clean you up. Even better still is if you do heal your teammate, you will spike your ability regen, grenades, melee, and your rift energy, jacking up your own personal survivability cycle. Remember, this is just a defensive example. Now let's talk about my personal favorite, and this is for higher skilled players in my opinion. Aggression, aggression, aggression. You can seriously go bonkers with this subclass and challenge or ego peak whatever you see fit, because you know you always have an ace up your sleeve between using your rift, healing nade, or even empowering yourself by using your charge melee. You'll find yourself in this situation more and more, particularly if you're playing a shotgun melee playstyle, which I personally recommend with this subclass. Coupled with a good shot and game sense, you really are a one-man wrecking crew. Now for some tips and tricks. 1. You must run firebolt grenades to maximize the uptime of your healing grenade, to maximize the potential to be empowered and jack up your survivability. I recommend at least tier 8 discipline to really feel the utility of this build. Failing that, stack grenade regen mods where possible, bomber, grenade kickstart, or demolitionist perks. Tip number 2, your super is not as useless as you might assume. It can take map control instantaneously, but be careful. You are very vulnerable to supers and you can be headshot out of your well by high impact snipers, just like any super. You also provide orbs for your teammates and provide charge rift light utility when you use your super. Tip number 3, make sure you use your charged melee. More often than not, I forget to take advantage of this, but the key thing is you only need to hit with this to trigger the empowered buff for you and your nearby teammates. Tip number 4, your biggest weakness is that you have a trash grenade, so you are deprived of zoning utility that you'd typically expect from solo grenades. In these instances, your best defense is your offense. You must have a good enough shot to push your opponents back. Tip number 5, it takes some time to eat your grenade. Do not just stand out in the open eating your grenade, either find cover or in a hectic situation where you're trying to save yourself, point your camera down at the floor to reduce the chance of getting pinged by headshots as you try to make a healing play. Tip number 6, finally, remember you do have a rift. Your rift can also trigger Benevolent Dawn. Empowering rifts can also instantly trigger Benevolent Dawn regardless of your teammate's HP status. You don't have to tunnel on your heal nade plays, you can save those for riskier, more aggressive plays. Now, just to close, I've played this subclass in the Crucible in both Trials of Osiris and Control, and it holds up very well, particularly in Trials. I can't tell you how many times I was able to make a heal play on a near-death teammate, which changed the complexion of the match. There are a few other subclasses I want to dabble with, not necessarily with specific builds or anything, but I just want to see how potent the subclass can be, at least in today's Crucible meta. Like I mentioned before, I'm not campaigning for this to be the main class, but this subclass is extremely fun and full of outplay potential. If you have any suggestions or thoughts, don't hesitate to drop a comment below. I hope this was useful or helpful for you. That's it for today. Your boy Sincere, signing out.